state of New Hampshire. Now, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley has jumped to second place over Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Why the sudden move? Some voters' voices here.
Nikki has a presence that goes beyond her words and her actions. They hear her speak once and they say, I know who my candidate is.
I think it's really interesting that Nikki Haley has surged as much as she has. I think she ticks a lot of boxes for a lot of the Republican and more moderate voters.
DeSantis also hitting a fundraising snag. He raised $15 million this quarter. That's a lot of money, but it's versus $34 million last quarter. And these numbers are getting some attention. Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin blew past the state's fundraising record by bringing in more than $4 million in just 48 hours, a total of $7+ million for the quarter. That kind of cash further fanning speculation of a possible last-minute White House bid. He's playing coy, though.
I've been very focused, and I continue to be focused on our Virginia elections.
I understand that.
And that's where I'm going to be.
And you rule this out.
What I rule out?
Jumping into the race.
Yeah, I've told you, I'm totally focused on Virginia elections.
Power panel. Shermichael Singleton, host of the Shermichael Singleton Show on SiriusXM, and Kevin Walling, former Biden 2020 campaign surrogate. Great to see you. All right, Shermichael, let's start with New Hampshire and what you think is happening there.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not surprised after Nikki Haley's repeated successful debate performances, Harris, as she's younger. She's a former governor. During her tenure, from my understanding, she led the state very well, particularly during some very troubling racial moments, which that happens to be something we're discussing quite often, unfortunately, across this country. She also brings significant foreign policy experience, being the UN ambassador, which I think we need, as many Americans are tired of the U.S. sending billions of dollars to Ukraine. We also have to deal with the China aggression in the South Chinese Sea. And so I think all of those components, if you're a conservative voter looking for someone else, then Nikki Haley clearly is an appealing candidate. But I will say this. I am still not convinced that she is someone who could beat the former President Harris. I'm still willing to say that he's likely going to be the nominee in 2024.
So, you know, it's interesting because if you jump beyond Trump and you go to the other side of the aisle, she is the only one of those candidates who consistently has been looked at in polling to beat President Biden outside the margin of error. What do you say, Kevin?
Yeah, Harris, it's a great question. Listen, I, as a Democrat for a long time, have been afraid of Nikki Haley. She's a former governor, to Shermichael's point, former UN ambassador, twice elected governor of South Carolina. As a woman, can appeal to suburban women. Had a great answer on the abortion question in the first debate. And listen, she has a track record. You go back to her first governor's race. She's a woman, little-known state rep that took out 3 elected men, lieutenant governor, attorney general, and a popular congressman. So she has a track record of coming from behind and taking out more well-established men in the race. And the surest sign that Donald Trump is actually, I think, nervous about Nikki Haley is that now she has a nickname, Bird Brain, which, you know, a lot of other candidates haven't gotten a nickname yet from Donald Trump.
Yeah, she put up something on her X feed that was what she said was delivered to her.
Yeah, that bird cage.
Recently, it was an actual bird cage. Look, you mentioned that she's a woman twice. And I just wonder, because we wouldn't say that about a man. And women like men with good messaging, too, you know. Well, I mean, look at Trump. I mean, he can do it. Biden somehow did it with his party. All right, let's move to this.
But Harris, I'll just say it's a good point. But she's the only woman on that debate stage,
and
I think optics matter.
But that wasn't the reference. Yeah. Okay, so a new Gallup poll finds that a majority of Republicans believe a third-party option is needed now. Uh-oh. Overall, third-party support is at 63%, which marks the third time support has exceeded 60% among Americans. And among those polled, 58% of Republicans, 46% of Democrats, and 75% of independents support the idea. And I say uh-oh with that because that's really dicey for both parties.
Yeah, no, it is, Harris. But I think if you look at what the implications of this are for President Biden with individuals like Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
An actual person. Yes.
Correct. And Dr. Cornel West, I think that appeal is more towards Democratic-leaning voters than it is for conservative voters. And I think if you look at the math in some of those swing states, I'm willing to say, based on the past as precedent here, then you could potentially see 3 to 4% of individuals in some of those swing states voting for one of those candidates over Joe Biden. And that is a benefit for whomever the Republican voters. We need to White House. This idea of playing around with a third-party candidate is incredibly dangerous.
All right, let's move to this, and Kevin, I'll come straight to you. A recent poll shows President Biden and former President Trump are neck and neck in a possible 2024 matchup. But that same poll shows the majority of Americans don't want either of them to run for another term. Kevin.
Well, listen, I think, we've seen this poll for a long time that a lot of folks don't want to see a repeat of 2020. But, to Shermichael's point, I hope Democrats rally behind President Biden. And to his question, 2% of Americans voted for a third party in 2020. We'll see if there's more people on the ballot. Robert Kennedy Jr. is now kind of tiptoeing into potentially running as a libertarian in early October. I think that actually might hurt Donald Trump when you look at his favorable ratings within Democrats and Republican circles. He's up 30% net with Republicans. He's down 43% with Democrats. So it actually could, maybe pull away from Donald Trump's base. We'll see if a no labels candidate gets in the race. I think any third party candidate in history, though, has always been a spoiler, as we know, and has really just affected the outcome between the Democrats and Republicans.
Well, I don't know how much time you guys have spent interviewing Bobby Kennedy Jr., but I have, and he was on the set with me, and I asked him point blank, are you a Republican? Are you an independent? He said, no, I'm a Democrat.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's having to do what he's doing now, from what I understand, because Democrats, your party, are trying to keep him off the ballot. All right, we got to go, but I'd love to continue that conversation with a little bit more reality in it.
Thank
you, gentlemen. Wonder what